All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight in this special Green Flag presentation. I'll introduce my guests real quick, and then I'd like to go around the room and give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. I believe this is going to be a fairly interactive session, so please do not hesitate to ask a question when offered the opportunity to, and explore the knowledge that these two fine presenters are going to give to us today. So joining us today are Dan Baker and Ed Elkins. Ed Elkins owns and operates Ed Elkins SEO, which is, well, it's an SEO company and other things. So he's been doing that for a couple of years, number of years. He's been in IT, I know at least 10 years, because I happen to know some of his past. So he's got a long history in IT and the development of websites and various other intellectual internet stuff. So, Ed, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's great to be here, Bob. Thank you so much for having me.
And joining Ed tonight is Dan Baker. I have not known Dan Baker quite as long as I have known Ed, but I feel like I have, because he's just that kind of a great person. Dan Baker is with Golden Goose Digital Marketing, and as the name implies, very good on the whole naming thing, right? Very simple to know what you do for your business. They do digital marketing, so whether it's social media, whether it's buying ads on Google, whether it's any number of different ways to digitally market yourself, that is what Dan does. Thank you for joining us tonight, Dan.
No problem, Bob.
So let me, if you don't mind, everybody, I'm just going to call out your name, and I'm going to give you just a moment. If you would, real quick, just introduce yourself. We'll start with, and if I murder your name, please accept my apologies in advance. Brayley and Shivers. If you want to unmute for just a moment and say hi. Okay, we'll move on to Isabel Short.
Hi, my name is Isabel Short. So I'm in this because both of my parents are starting a new business and are actually buying a business.
Very good.
And so later on, when I'm older and I have enough education and experience, I plan to take over. So that's my plan.
Don't wait, Isabel. The Klingons would say, take over today while you can. Dominique.
Hi, my name is Dominique. I am majoring in economics, and I like to go to all the WebEx meetings. They are about businesses because I love them. I love international business and everything that has to do with that. But everything that you said will help me out in the future. I know it.
Thank you for joining us, Dominique. And I'm going to give a stab. Is it Alatriste? Am I right on that? Did I get that pronunciation correct? Okay, let me know. Gada, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ghada. I am a student in Mesa Community College. Established a business online store. I'm working international. I'm Chief International.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. And Terry Penner?
Hi, sorry if there's a lot of background noise. It's the witching hour at home. I'm Taryn. I'm currently studying fashion, and I've really been enjoying all of these extra speakers, Bob, that you've been organizing. I'm finding them very helpful for my future business.
Good deal. And Terry Penner.
Hi, everybody. Terry Penner from Sleepworks. We're a new clinic in the East Valley, actually in our second year with independent sleep medicine practice and home sleep testing.
Cool. Terry's like my sneaky little chamber member that I snuck in here. So there you go. Astrid?
Hi, everyone. My name is Astrid. I am starting a business with my older brother. It's gonna be more of like a Guatemalan /tea coffee shop. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here and just to learn more about business.
Cool. And Sean, is it Petite?
Yes, thank you. You're exactly right. Right now, I'm currently going to MCC, but I also work at a bank, and I can absolutely see myself owning my own business in the future. And I thought the class was fascinating, and I love these extra talks, so I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. And Austin Steele.
Hi. Sorry, I came in a little bit late. What was the?
Just a quick introduction of yourself, and if you're
Hi.
starting a business or if you're interested in business, kind of just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess this is kind of just like a little necessary for me to graduate, so that's why I'm here.
Nothing wrong with that.
Point your points.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and actually just turn it over to our presenters. They've been working together on their work tonight. So looks like Ed's unmuted himself first. So I'm just going to hand that baton off to Ed. Thank you so much, and it's all yours.
Hey, awesome, Bob. Thank you so much. And thank you folks for having us on here. You know, when it comes to digital marketing, there's always something to be said about what you read online and what you get from the people who do it every day. And rather than just presenting information to you, what we'd rather do is open up the floor to see what questions you have about digital marketing and how we can get you to your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything you guys have, we would love to answer. Kind of feel like if you want to be presented to, we can totally do that. We have a full presentation that can bore you to death, so you can get those extra credit points that you want. But we can also have a more open dialogue with you guys and just answer any burning questions you have, any kinds of like myths you've heard, or just anything in general that's like got you kind of thinking about what you need to be doing with your business as you kind of move it forward, or as you kind of move forward in your kind of careers and things like that, to be prepared for whatever kinds of kind of online presence challenges you may face. So we'd love to help out however we can.
So I'll kick off with just a question to kind of get you guys talking and give everybody a chance to kind of formulate some thoughts. If you were to sit down with somebody and they were saying, hey, I'm opening, let's go with a coffee shop. I'm going to open a coffee shop, and I'm a little bit away. I'm about 2-3 months away from opening it before it opens. What steps would you suggest that person be taking now digitally to kind of prep themselves for that point when they do open?
I can kind of jump off and some of the stuff that I would do right off the bat. And obviously that would be establishing yourself, online as best as possible. So if you can, if you've got a business name already, finding a domain that will fit perfectly, starting to work out what the website is going to be looking like, what you need it to do, how the function of it needs to go, what kinds of things is it going to provide, kind of the what, when, where, why of, how come you're going to have a website. And then additionally, having a social media presence will be huge. So finding out where you want to be in your social media presence. So you have to have it in today's world. It's an unavoidable consequence of owning a business, but you don't have to have every single thing. And that's something that a lot of people maybe kind of believe, is that they need to be on every single social media channel, but you really just need to be where your clients are. So if you're more of a B2B situation, something like LinkedIn is going to work a lot better for you than say like Instagram, or Twitter might work a little better from a B2B standpoint than, say Facebook. And the same goes if you're more of a B2C situation. So if you're that coffee shop, having an Instagram, having a Facebook, those things are going to go a really long way, a lot further than say a LinkedIn or a Twitter is, especially coffee shops and things like that. If you get really creative and want to, really show off your branding and what you're doing, and, showing off those really cool, videos of people doing like awesome pours when they're like making espressos or whatever it is, or cappuccinos and things like that, making awesome imagery and things like that. So that would be the things that I would say you'd want to be looking at right now and getting yourself flushed out so you're ready to kind of hit the ground running once you open up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't agree with that anymore. It's all about preparation. Anytime you're going into a business, especially in the digital world we're in now, you have to cover your bases in terms of your brand. And what Dan talked about, one of the very first things is, you're developing that name, that brand name, and you're getting that domain name. And a domain name is basically a house address, a street address for your house, but this is your business online. So this is kind of the route that you need to focus, is that brand building. Up to launch of that coffee shop, you need to have, since you're a local business that's looking at local customers, you need to have a Google My Business profile. That is one of the very first things that you should do once you know who your audience is, those coffee lovers in the area. And at that point, it's about reaching them, being where they're looking. And what is everyone using right now to find the local coffee shop? They're searching for things like good coffee near me. And unless you're on Google, unless you're on the social media, they're not going to find you. So you got to lock that stuff down as soon as possible.
I'll ask a quick question, because I'm an old guy, and I know most of our guests are much younger and probably far more savvy. But I was introduced to the internet when I was in my 40s, and so frequently when people talk about social media, I know what a website is, but maybe you could just define what is social media. I know we need to be using social media, but what is social media?
I actually always say that social media is the place where you build that reputation for your business. So that's kind of how I've always put it. So I kind of define the two. So you need to have social media because that's how you build the reputation of your brand, but you need to have a website because that's how you kind of build that credibility. So from that aspect, whenever I think of social media, I think about whatever it is that you're going to be doing to create that reputation of what your brand is and what your function is going to be. And what it is a way for you to be able to engage with an active audience that cares about the things that you are offering and the services and products that you have. And it's kind of the best place for you to be able to disseminate that information in probably the least expensive way by far, all the way up to basically free, so that you can put yourself out there, be online without having to do all the other stuff like, running paid ads and, kind of putting yourself in those other situations so that you can get the information out about what you do and also get it out to an audience that cares about what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull Taryn out for a second. So Taryn, I'm calling you out here for just a second. Talk a little bit about your journey so far with your business and what you've done digitally so far, and what you think you may want to do digitally as your next steps.
You're putting me on the spot.
Yes, I am.
Well, I had a very nice conversation with Ed at the end of last week about setting up a website, because I want majority of my sales for my company to happen online. And assuming that I'll be getting a lot of my customers or clients from kind of Facebook and Instagram and, more social media type things. So I got an email from him today about some ideas that we can be using, and we're going to put together something in the next couple of weeks on how I can, set up something that at least I think would be user friendly and easy to navigate in terms of, logging on and getting what you want out of the website.
So what do you think would be, like, when you think about, okay, this is where my business is, and so you've had a conversation with Ed, you kind of started that initial step. What do you feel is your next step besides do what Ed tells you? Don't ever just do what Ed tells you, by the way.
Well, I think my next step, once I've got the website up, is to start looking at the products that I want to be selling, and then doing professional looking photos of what I'm selling and uploading that to the website. Sorry, yeah, the kids in the background.
All good. So let me kind of shift a little bit. I'm God, it's your turn. I'm going to call you out a little bit because you've got a unique circumstance. You're going to be dealing with international commerce. So talk a little bit about what your thinking is around that and kind of some of the things that you feel like you're going to run into.
Now I need to establish the online store, but maybe one problem, I need to establish it in Arabic language because my customer language is Arabic. I don't know how it will be, but maybe this is one of my problem now. But I think it is very necessary to use social media to marketing the business.
So that raises a question. That raises a question that I want to kind of follow up on that. So Gada has her primary market is the country of Sudan, which is mostly Muslim Arabic speaking. How does she approach social media in that respect now? Obviously going to traditional platforms like Facebook or is not really going to serve her customers. Does she have a different avenue that she needs to pursue in order to reach that target audience?
Well, yes, that's a great question. It's funny because of the way there are so many different options of acquiring customers, whether it be on social media, whether it be on search. In social media, you have the ability to join groups like that have the same type of interests as you. For example, there are people, and I can attest to this because of my bank account recently, there are people who are making livings selling plants online, completely making a living, but they found their audience. They found that customer base. So even though my wife has made it so my house is full of awesome plants, there are people who can make a living selling plants online, and the only thing they needed to do was identify who their customer was, their ideal customer, and then be where they are. So if that means that Nagata is joining groups with the same types of interests from those areas of the world, that's perfectly fine. That means that she can go ahead and present the benefits of what she is offering to them. There's just so many different options in terms of acquiring people online that like for Gada's situation, after I spoke with her, my mind went off in 50 different directions. Yeah, we can, and it always does. I can build a site in completely Arabic language. Not a problem. We have the technology. We can do it, which means that we can tell Google that what she's doing is relevant to what people are searching for.
I think the translation using Google is not correct because I know that, but I can help in that point for translate, because I think Google it's the translation using Google no, it's not correct.
No, it's not. It's not. Google hasn't gotten to the point where they can identify language as accurately, the nuances of language. When it comes to building websites and whatnot, at least when I spoke with Gada, we were talking about working hand in hand. Because anytime you're working with someone in digital marketing or someone for your business, it needs to be a partnership. And Gada was the very first person that I've actually asked and said, hey, are you willing to help me with the translation of this? And there was absolutely no skipping a beat. She said yes. And at that point, I knew that no matter what, because I'm working with her as a partner, we're going to find that audience for her in the language they communicate in and convert them into customers.
So let me ask my coffee house person if you would put up the little hand that shows me who you are, because I'm going to actually steer a question to Dan real quick for you. So, Dan, a coffee shop is a very local business for the most part. I mean, there aren't that many Starbucks out there. So, how do you leverage your location to reach people in that localized area? What are tools that they can take advantage of for that?
I think obviously, like Ed touched on, the Google My Business is a really big part of that. A lot of people obviously in that space, especially creating, Ed talked about building an audience, from an international market, but also from the types of things and services and products that you're offering. So if you're a coffee shop, there's a huge audience for that. And that market is massive. And the fans of that market are loyal and diehard, and they're, they're going to go crazy. I mean, like even here in Mesa, everybody loves Jared's tea and coffee, and like everybody thinks that's fantastic. And because it's this really local product, and what they've done is they've cultivated being local and becoming that kind of thing, and being intrinsic in like, hey, what we're doing is outside the scope of what you can get at Starbucks. Sure, if you need a quick cup of Joe and and you're too snobby for Dunkin' or McDonald's, shoot over to Starbucks and it's enough for you. But if you really want to experience something and support somebody who's as passionate about coffee or tea as you are, especially, I think that they had mentioned that they were looking into like the Guatemalan side of things or something like that. So it's even more niche than just going after a coffee market. It's going after people who care about that kind of stuff, because people get into arguments all the time about, the best place for coffee beans to show up from. And that exists, and that market gets crazy. And so I think that's the things that you would want to do. So, leveraging yourself and focusing in on being a local product and that kind of quality above and beyond what you're already, because your competition is Starbucks, unfortunately, for the masses. But there's an audience out there that is going to care about what you're doing, and they're going to be able to help to support you. So finding that audience is, I think, a big part of where social media comes into play, because you can find that audience, and then you can engage with them and figure out how what you're doing is going to help them and make them want to, work with you or go to your coffee shop or whatever it is, even if that's a little bit more of a drive than, the millions of places they can hit on the way to it. But if they can get that actual, that flavor that they're looking for from what you're offering, that's the biggest part. And the local side of it, that's something that Google's really working hard to do. And I think Ed might be able to touch on a little better than me, but the local side of it really focusing in on, because people care about that. They want to support local. It's become such a, insurgence. I mean, we have so many businesses that's their main thing, is like, work with us because we're not just American, we're local, or we're not just, a state product. We're in Mesa, we're in Gilbert, we're in wherever we're at. And that goes, people are really resonating with that and it's becoming a really big deal for them to support that. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where, with coffee, like Dan was saying, you have the audience. I don't have to tell you how many times I would get up before I would go to class and go to the local coffee shop and spend my student loans on the best coffee I thought on the planet, right? I'm still paying interest on that caramel macchiato, but still, it's one of those things where you have the audience and you build the brand, and they come to love the brand. Now, locally, like Dan was saying, when it comes to Google My Business, people are searching on their phones and they're searching using Google. We know that because there's not as many people using Bing. In fact, the number one keyword when searching for Bing is the word Google. So people are using it, and you have the ability to influence what Google is showing people locally. Google has something called search algorithms. There's computations, patents involving all of this information. But what Google looks at, let's say for a coffee shop, for instance, they look at prominence of the coffee shop or authority. What do they look like online? Are they authoritative? Do people like them? Are they close to the person searching? Because after all, why would I want search results for a coffee shop in Kentucky when I'm over here in Mesa? And then relevance, that's the most important thing. So when people are putting together websites and they're putting together, posts on social media that are shown online, they're building relevance for that. And when you have the relevance, when you have the authority as a website based on the content you produce, Google is more likely to say, we're going to go ahead and go with your coffee shop over your competitors because your competitor doesn't talk about coffee that much. They talk about the awesome cups that they sell at the shop, not the coffee itself. And that's what we're seeing in SEO right now. We're seeing a shift. We had these people who were putting what's called keywords, what people are searching for, and they were just stuffing them like a Thanksgiving turkey into website content. I don't have to, 10 years ago, if you would have looked at a website, you would have seen, let's say, a divorce attorney. You'd have a whole website about information about the attorney, and then on the bottom of the website, it'll say divorce, alimony, child custody, and just over and over and over again with all these potential keywords. Google doesn't care about that anymore. When it comes to you locally, they want the information that's going to be pertinent to the person searching for you nearby, and they want it to be relevant.
Yeah. And to speak to some of the tools that could be used to kind of help, define what that audience is going to look like and the things that you should be focusing on for what it is. Like, I think Google Trends is a really good product to utilize for something like that. I know, like, as we were sitting here, I was just like looking up like local coffee shops, and local coffee roasters is up over 400% in the last 12 months. So, I mean, I think we can see that there's a major shift in the way that people are thinking about how they want to consume those types of products. And I think it would go across the board with anything, taking that to that next level. People are, really, like I said, they're really focusing in on wanting to work with local and go hyper local even. I mean, because people get crazy now about even just the cities that they live in, not just the states. And it's pretty impressive, the kinds of shifts that we've seen to that kind of focus. So that's a big part of it, but that's a great tool that I would utilize when you're looking into something, is looking at the trends, see what your industry is doing and what people care about in your industry right now.
So again, that's Google Trends, Dan?
Yep.
Okay. So let me shift gears on you a little bit and get your opinion on emails. So for many, many years, emails were a linchpin to building successful relationships with a client base because it was a way for you to communicate directly with them. Is that still the case? What do you guys think?
Absolutely. It's still absolutely the case. I think that one of the best digital marketing strategies that you can create is running an email marketing campaign. It still sees the highest engagement rate. It still sees the highest open rate. It has the best conversion rates of any other types of ad. And I hate to downplay, because I mean, I live for Google Ads and all the stuff that we can do in there, but I also recognize that email marketing, because what you've done is somebody's visited your site. They've said, I like what you have to offer. I want stuff that you have to offer, and I want you to engage with me by giving you that email address. They're giving you that kind of that sacred, it's like getting the phone number or getting something cool like that. They've given you a piece of them, and they're willing to share it with you as long as you're willing to deliver with them. So that's not to say that you should spam them and you should bombard them with emails on a daily basis or anything. It's just to say that it's the best place for you to communicate with your audience in a way that they will want to engage, and they will take action above and beyond anything else that they could be doing from a digital marketing strategies. Like, if you're going to actually spend money on something, I think an email marketing campaign is a great kind of online advertising tool to utilize for sure.
Let me follow up on a question, because you made an interesting point. You said it doesn't mean you should spam them, but you do want to engage with them. Where's the line? What's the difference between spamming and engaging with your customers?
That's such a personal preference. Some people, 2 emails in a month is too much, but some people can get an email every single day for a year before they go, man, these people email me all the time. I never buy anything. So I think it has a lot to do with kind of figuring that out as well. So, and that's something that's really great, is that email marketing has a lot of metrics, and just in general, I mean, online marketing as a whole has a lot of metrics that you can work off of, and to understand what you're doing and what's working and what's not working. And that's something that's great about the email marketing. So if you're sending out stuff and you're seeing that people are opening it and then they're not taking action, that that's not really working. Or you're seeing that people aren't opening it, you maybe know that your call to actions aren't very good, or that the things that you're offering in there aren't very good, or they're not speaking to the right audiences. So it's kind of tough. I mean, I would say, personally, conservatively, once a week would be probably pretty safe. I would assume most people wouldn't be too offended by an email once a week, especially if it had, if it had pertinent information about what you're offering currently, or like stuff that you have coming up, or news and just things like that. And I think that's where a lot of people are helping to build those preferences too, because there's a lot of email marketing products that exist today that you can go to unsubscribe and it goes, wait, hold on, don't unsubscribe. What are we doing wrong that you would like us to see differently? And you can check, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see that, but I do want to see this, show me that, you know, and then they know. And it's like, okay, how much do you want to receive from us too? I'm sure you've seen those too. You go to unsubscribe and they go, well, what if we just email you like once a week? Because the other part is it's a big deal for them to have that data from you and get that information, because it helps them to build their strategies out as they move forward, as well as still being able to keep you on the hook by having your email. So, I mean, as a marketer, like, we want you to stay on board. We don't want you to unsubscribe, but we also recognize that we don't want to annoy you. So there's that fine line. So.
Are there measurement tools? I mean, like, I'll use a real example. For example, I signed up for the Sonic app. So every day I get this is the special that we have today. Come in and you can get this for 50 cents or whatever. But every day I get that. Are they measuring that? Or are they saying, oh, he came in and bought a hamburger, but he never comes in and buys the hot dog or whatever? Is there any way to measure that, or is that totally shot in the dark?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think Ed wants to jump. So, but yeah, definitely the answer is yes. And there are tons of tools that exist that allow you to be able to see what's working and what's not, you know, products like MailChimp or Constant Contact, you know, all of the HubSpot, you know, those are, you know, great email marketing flow tools that allow you to see that kinds of information and know what's working. So, hey, we sent him that deal for the hot dog, you know, 4 times, he never opened it, but man, he loves that slushy, you know, so.
Yeah, that's so true, because what's going to happen after that? You're going to get a bunch of coupons for additional slushies to keep coming back, right? It's the same thing we've seen at first with grocery stores, with those little cards that we used to put on our keychains. Now we just give them the phone number. Fries, for instance, locally, right? They'll send you in the mail coupons, and you'll be thinking, wow, they know that I need my almond milk, and they're going to give me 50% off for that. That's great for them. Everyone's getting data, and with the way that email marketing works now and the technology we have the ability to do autoresponders. So let's say, for instance, you signed up for an email for one of my clients' websites. We have the ability, when we do the email marketing campaign, to actually pre-write these emails that are sent to you strategically, whether it be over a course of a week, so maybe once every 24 hours, or maybe once you click on that link in the email, it'll tell the system, we need to send him another email. And we're going to get him into the lane of no longer being a prospect customer, but being in our funnel of client acquisition. So these tools are all there, and no matter what you're doing for a digital marketing strategy, you have to be able to measure your results and the actions, the behaviors, and then being able to adapt from that. And what's happening is we're seeing a shift where people don't necessarily have the time for these nice, extravagant looking emails. They just want the short, nitty gritty, tell me where the discount is and give me a link, and that's it. So it's interesting. We have the technology to basically track anything right now. If you were to go to my website right now, I could tell you where your mouse moved on my website, what you clicked on, how long you stayed on the page. Yeah, it can tell me, it can tell us everything. So it's just up to the digital marketers and their clients to work together to adapt the strategy to move forward and capitalize on it.
So let's shift gears again, and let's talk about apps. Apps, you know, they've risen in the last 5-7 years, right? So they were kind of a novelty at first, and I think now they've kind of inched their way into a more central place in a lot of strategies. Talk about what your guys' feelings are on apps and what you think they can do for a business or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think an app is a great product, especially if you have something that you know you could provide a value to somebody in a more streamlined approach. Is a kind of, so if you're able to offer something to them and all they have to do is click right from their phone or their tablet or whatever, right into an app that takes them and gets them to disseminates the information that they need, or can help them, navigate what they need in a quicker way than having to jump over to your website. I think that's great. To speak a little bit about advertising on apps, I don't recommend it. I find them to be very invaluable. It is a waste of your money. If anyone tells you you should be advertising on apps, I don't subscribe to that belief system, because I think we all know any free app that we use that spams us with ads, we never click on those ads. They just annoy us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I did what's called ASO, App Store Optimization, once. And what you found in terms of being able to track people who are interested in apps, and then the turnover rate, the uninstall rate on apps, is that the more complicated the app was, the less people used it. The more features you presented, the less people wanted to download it. So there's a disconnect. People are okay with apps, but with everything, no matter what, it has to provide value. There's no more of these apps that are just there for fun, that just copy your website and that's it. You have to give the value, and there has to be a reason that's going to motivate someone to want to open that app on a regular basis.
Yeah, so it has to simplify it has to simplify the end user's kind of relationship with like going just to the website and doing it. So like, I don't know if you've ever used an app and they say that they have this like, you can buy from the app, right? And then you go and it's so clumsy and so difficult to use. You're like, why didn't I just go on my phone, go to the website? Apple would have taken care of all of it, or Google would have already had all of my information. It would have auto-filled it in and I would have ran and I'm good. So I think that's the whole thing, is if it doesn't simplify something that is already a pain point for somebody, even though the online, experience of, mobile devices has changed so dramatically, if it doesn't do that, then I wouldn't even waste your time trying to develop an app at that point, because it's time and effort that you could be putting into just making the website awesome and making it super great and mobile responsive, to the nth degree, even though most stuff is nowadays. But that's kind of the answer there, is if it can simplify that kind of, that relationship that they have, or the experience that they have, that they're having online, and make it even easier just by clicking a button, going to an app, then it's worth it. But if you can't, then it doesn't play.
So let me put this ball right in Dan's court. This is going to be literally Dan's business. So Dan's business is to help people buy advertising, digital marketing. So Dan, talk a little bit about, if you're going to spend money to advertise your business digitally, what things are important for people to consider? And Ed, you're welcome to chime in too. I just know this is Dan's bread and butter. So
goals. I think that's as simple as that. You have to define what your goals are, and then that's going to define what types of marketing, advertising strategies you should use and spend your money on. So I mean, if you're, you have to be looking at that from like, you look at it like it's a funnel. And so each type of online advertising tool that you could utilize kind of plays into a different place in the funnel system. So if you're trying to kind of build branding and awareness, and that's your goal, it's going to be a totally different thing. It's probably going to be like a display campaign. But if your goal is, I want people actively researching the products and services that I offer, then at that point, maybe it's a search campaign. Or if it's going to be, kind of, I want to focus on purchasing, maybe that becomes shopping campaigns, that becomes social media campaigns. Things like that becomes email marketing campaigns, things, of that nature. So it really is defining what your goals are, and then ensuring that you are able to meet those goals with the type of advertising avenue that you're going to take. And that's something that a lot of people maybe get into. They just kind of dip their toe and try this, and you know what, I'll spend a bunch of money on a video and then I'll run it and see if that, helps to, build a bunch of people going to my website and signing up for the newsletter. It's like, video is not really going to do that as much as, say, a display campaign is going to do that. So that's kind of the way that I describe it. If you're going to spend your money on something, understand what you want your money to do for you. And that is a goal. Have a goal in mind of what you want it to do. And I know the ultimate goal is client acquisition. We want more people buying our products and services. That's what we want. But there are a lot of things that go into that, and there are a lot of pieces in the funnel to getting to that point. So creating kind of a, you know, a digital strategy of sorts that aligns with everything that you think you can accomplish is what's going to get you the best bang for your buck, the best return on your investment, and understanding that stuff.
So this one, I'm going to go right over to you, Ed, because somebody actually posted a question in the chat, and I know this is your wheelhouse because, well, I know. What would be a few good strategies to help to reach less than tech savvy customers? So you're trying to reach people that maybe aren't obviously interested in apps. They're not necessarily, you know, I hesitate to label them in any way, but they're just people that do not like technology and are very discomforted with it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, those are my favorite types of people that my clients acquire. And the reason for that is because we're almost reaching back a generation and saying, hey, hold on, I know you might not be adapting to technology, but we still got you. We're still going to help you out. So when we talk about how do we reach those people, we talk about things like, well, here's an easy one. I just had a client who decided to take part in the new ad hoc Hulu advertising. That's right. Small businesses now can advertise, and I think Dan can talk more to this, on Hulu directly. So we know that these people might not be in front of their computer, but if they're in front of their TV, then we're going to do what we can to get in front of them because we have something to offer them. Dan has talked about it plenty of times. It's that value, and getting that value proposition to them, no matter where they are, whether it's through TV, because that's still digital marketing really, through even simple campaigns of referrals, like referral campaigns for clients. That's another way to acquire customers that might not necessarily be where our bread and butter is online, on Google, on Facebook, on Yahoo. It's being able to research the customer, know based off of your research where they're going to be, what they do, what they like, and get in front of them. And that's why you reach out to someone like Dan, because when you do online ads, there are so many different channels that, I mean, for instance, Dan can chime in here. What happens when you run an ad on Facebook? You have the option of also running an ad on Instagram, right? You have multiple channels. So Dan, what kind of channels could you think of that might help in terms of getting in front of someone right then, right now? Because with paid ads, sir, you control it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes a lot into having a really good understanding of the kind of audience that you want to define and what they're doing, because not only are you going to create an ad, let's say in Facebook, but now it's going to ask you, well, who do you want to target? You know, let's say, I know Terry pointed out something about the computer savvy or less than computer savvy, so 65 and older and things like that. Well, those people are still online. And surprisingly, a lot of those people might be using, like, let's say you wanted to go after a search ad, maybe in that situation, in that older category, you go after Bing. As much as it might seem like a dinosaur, those people got their computer that their grandchild set up for them, and it had the default browser of Microsoft Edge, or I don't know what it's called now, Microsoft Internet Explorer, and it's got default of Bing. And so they're using Bing. I mean, the majority of people that are using Bing are on the older side of things. And it's like there's tons of data on that. That ends up being a little bit, it ends up being a little bit more of an affluent population and an older population. And that's the exact reason, because they're not going in there and bailing on Internet Explorer because it's terrible and using Chrome or Firefox or any of the other, internet browsers that work better. But additionally, kind of to piggyback on Ed, that's the thing about digital marketing is it allows you, even if you're a small business, to put yourself out there in that world. So like Ed was saying, you can advertise on Hulu as a small business for not a ton of money. And as long as you're able to kind of create something, like create an ad, create a video of some sort, you could run that in Hulu, and you could do that. I mean, that would be through what they call over-the-top advertising or connected television advertising. So when those people are watching Hulu and that ad pops up, it can be your ad. You can actually open the auction and, enter that and go after those people that are, watching Hulu currently. And I think that's what's really cool is it's taken away what used to be really difficult. Hey, I want to advertise on TV, but it's so expensive. Not anymore, because you don't have to reach out to a network anymore and say, hey, I want to reach out to Fox and I want to get this block of time from them and I got to pay this much money for it. You can just enter the auction and say, I've got this much money to spend. I'd like to go after these people. If you can make that happen, then let's do it. And you kind of let those algorithms take over and allow your ad to go after those people that you want to go after. So I think that's kind of to answer that. There's just a ton of avenues, and whatever you do, I think it's all about that targeting is the biggest takeaway for me. Is like, if whatever advertising you're going to go after, whatever type, if you use Facebook, if you do Google, if you go after, if you reach out to like an agency like us that's going to have access to some of those products, that allow us to get into the over-the-top ads and the connected television ads, we're going to use products like DV360, and we can define an algorithm like that. But we're going to say the same thing. Who do you want to target? Where do you want to target them? Like, how much do you want to spend? Things like that. So that's that targeting is a big part of of advertising online. I think that's the biggest, like almost one of the best benefits of advertising online is that you can target the audience that you care about. And not to say that it's a perfect system and it gets it right every single time, but that's why, like, if you're interested enough into it, you can tweak it and work it, or you pay guys like Ed and I to figure it out for you and tweak it and figure out that you tell us what you want and we make it happen. So
I think
I'd like to kind of address that if I can. As a 65 plus and as someone who is marginally tech savvy, I will say that I do use the internet. I do use apps. I do use my phone, but it all depends on, I think what you said earlier is simplicity. If I go onto a website and suddenly I'm like floundering, trying to figure out why can't I do what I want to do, I'm gone. I don't stay there. If I'm trying to order food on Friday night, say for example, and I go to a website and I can't even figure out how to navigate their menu, let alone place an order, or even if I can place an order, and then I have to struggle with how am I going to pay, or I'm gone. I don't do that. So I think 65 plus, we're not opposed to using technology. What we're opposed to is struggling with technology. And so I think it's important what you said earlier, some simplicity. Apps have to improve your life, right? If they don't, that's where you're going to lose people is by not giving us something that we can work with.
So let me real quick, I just want to give, and I think this might be Dan's purview a little bit more than Ed's, but Ed, if you got it, let me know. You have, with this great democratization that the internet has brought us, you have access to get ads into traditional terrestrial radio, television, and all of those sort of media markets that existed prior to the internet. Is that right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is most of those companies are opening themselves up. Like, I know Terry made a comment about their older patients not watching network channels, and that's fine. So if that means they're watching just the local channels or whatever, if they're even watching those, you can still get in there with a digital ad. It doesn't have to be an ad. It doesn't have to be reach out to a network and make an ad buy. It can still be a digital ad into an open marketplace where you go after that, and you can define that, because you can even say where you want those ads to place. You have to enter that auction, and you have to set up. It's kind of similar in that way, because like, let's say DV360 is a product that I would use to do that. Hey, I want to run a commercial and I want it to show up on Fox 10 or whatever, and I'm just saying that as a random point. I'd have to go in there and, I could find that placement, basically is what I would call it. And then I could negotiate an auction for that and say, like, what is that going to cost us to do? Or I can go into the open marketplace and I can define the target audience, and it'll cost me a lot less to do it that way. And at that point, I can get to those people watching those local channels, as well as other people maybe going a little more tech savvy. Because I think back to like my wife's grandparents are both in their late 70s and like even late 80s, and they actually use things like YouTube TV and Sling and a whole bunch of other stuff. So they're a little bit of an outlier, but they want to be that way. They want to be tech savvy and follow that stuff. But they call me all the time looking for help with that. But they are out there. That audience, that older audience, does exist in those places using those apps and services when they're simple. And so I think that's kind of speaking to that. And kind of focusing. So yeah, we have the ability to do that. You can get into those traditional channels as well as those other channels that exist. So not just, getting into Spotify and Pandora if you want to go after, the online radio side of things, but you can also get in. There are a ton of, what are they called? Like radio stations now that are just selling their ad space to the digital market. They're working with Google, they're working with Verizon Media, they're working with, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of companies, a whole bunch of different, SSPs and DSPs out there that they're working with, and being able to buy that time and then sell it back to the advertisers to then get ads put on. So.
Definitely. And this isn't my area of expertise. I'm aware of it. And this is when I start asking Dan these types of questions. But we have the technology now to make it so that when you going back to the coffee shop, so if you go to Target, someone like Dan has the ability to say, these people within this zip code, which happens to be around this place that they're going, let's say the Starbucks at Target. Well, when they're in Target by that Starbucks, we're going to be showing them ads for this coffee shop. When they're at a competitor, they're going to get the competitor's ads while they're within that location. So while we might not have these other generations that are willing to put up with the challenges that really this technology is bringing, because let's face it, it's confusing. If it doesn't add value, it's frustrating. But we have the technology to pinpoint with ads within, I'm not even sure how many feet, that we can say, if you're within this location, within the zip code, within these coordinates, this ad's going to show up.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be different based on the different avenues that you go. Like, actually, surprisingly, some of the best, like most detailed targeting that I've ever seen was actually through Snapchat. Like you could like down to like I'm in this store and I can target them with an ad through Snapchat. I know that seems odd, but like they were one of the few that did it. Cause I mean, Google has really great targeting, but Google has never bridged the gap of like, I'm in this exact store in this place, like this, like down to like the pinpoint of like, they're 50 feet into the store and I can get them if I have a Snapchat ad. So it's kind of just depending, and everybody's got their different abilities, but yeah, like Ed is saying, it's totally doable if you're in that situation of, hey, I want people that shop at Target, right? We can start targeting, we can start putting, little geo fences around those targets that you want or something like that, or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what's great. It just goes back to that. That's why digital advertising is so much better than the traditional media, because you can literally target somebody in so many varieties of ways, and so many, you can put together, your ideal audience, and that ideal audience is this old, they make this much money, let's say, they own a home, maybe they rent, whatever it is, they, and they're interested in this stuff matters to them, they're looking into this, and, they're hanging out around here. So, yeah.
My students turn in papers all the time. In their papers, they write, I'm going to use social media advertising because it's free. Speak to that.
I wouldn't know of a free social media advertising platform other than utilizing just posting about stuff and then just kind of going on and, having to do. So I don't know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So even if it's free to the point where they're making a post and then they're going off to a bunch of different groups in those different social media channels and saying, hey, I just posted about this. I just posted a blog about this, or I'm running a special. They still had to go out and try to get that audience and work for it. So there's like an opportunity cost to that of their time, but I would say that if they were talking about actually like spending money on an ad that would play and be a sponsored content, or an ad that would show up and, say the search results of Facebook or off to the side there, that's going to cost money. That there's no avoiding that. But I would say if they're talking about advertising in social media, as in I'm going to post about something, or I'm going to run a story about something, and then I'm going to share it to a bunch of places, and I'm going to have all my friends share it, all my followers share it, and all the groups that I like share it, then yeah, that would be the only way I could think of a free option. So
let me open it up a little bit. Anybody have any last questions? We're just going to start to bump up against the 7 o'clock hour. So I want to give you guys a chance to have any last questions out there. Otherwise, I will go ahead and wrap up with, gentlemen, if you would each say what would be today the things, like if you could say, these are the 3 things today, when you get off this call, you need to make sure that you have in place for digital marketing? And we'll start with Dan.
Let's think. I mean, I think that what I would do is define what your ideal audience is. So your ideal client, whatever that is. So work to figure that out, because I have yet to see in a lot of products that exist that are evergreen and every single person on the planet can utilize them. I don't know, maybe Amazon, but there's plenty of detractors there too. So I don't know. So yeah, I would say defining that audience, figuring out what your brand is going to look like once you've defined that audience. And then I would say the third one is just kind of, start planning, how you want to engage with that audience is probably what I would say from that point. So what are you going to do? You're going to run a website, you're going to run social media, you're going to run ads, are you going to run an email marketing campaign? What are you going to do? And start looking into that. And there's a ton of information out there that exists to define that audience, to figure out what it looks like, and to start building your approach of what you should be doing. So it's a limitless world out there. So.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to work with someone like Dan who shares the same types of values in digital marketing that I do. I am huge with value. You know your audience and know what you can bring to the table. Because if you don't add any value to that interaction and you can't define that, then they're not going to be your client or customer. They have no reason to be. So what you need to do is you need to define who they are, what you can give to them, and how you're going to do it. Most of the time nowadays, online with a website, social media, domain name, you can move mountains as long as you know who you want as your customer and how you can help them, and then communicate that to them.
Cool. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Dan, how can people find Golden Goose Digital Marketing?
They can find us at goldengoosedm.com. And I think that's all of our social media profiles. So Golden Goose, like DMs on Instagram. I think that's the same as our Facebook, stuff like that. So yeah, I think we've been working super hard on SEO to get, like, if you looked up like Golden Goose Digital Marketing, we're pretty much up there at the top of the search results. So nobody's come after us with ads yet. So.
And Ed, how can people find you aside from being in the Mesa Green Flag program?
Yeah, essentially all you have to do is just search at Elkins or at Elkins SEO, or you can just type in at elkins.com. I'll be everywhere. And I'm more than happy to take the time to speak with anyone and give them tips. I'm the type of person, I started out where you guys were, where anyone starts out, and we're here to help you. So make use of it.
Cool. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. As always, certainly feel free to reach out to Dan or myself if you have any questions about tonight's presenters. Feel free to reach out to them. They are both very open to discussing and, just kind of talking with you about what your goals are and how to achieve them. I believe the next, and I apologize, I didn't look it up. Dan, do you know what the next one is?
No, why would, Dan Pierce.
I'm sorry, Dan Piercy.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up as well.
All right. So I'm going to actually just delay for just a second because I think Sally's looking it up for me. We do have a couple of more presentations on tap before we reach the end of this series, which we will reach in April. Yes.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the 24th. It's Only the Law, Don't Be Scared. Is that?
Oh, yes. So Brent from HPS Law Firm will be talking about how to organize your business, what type of a business you might want to be. So whether it's an LLC, a single person LLC, multi-person LLC, however you want to manage that, that's what that discussion is going to be like on the 24th. It's really they're really super good people to work with, and they are also participating in the Green Flag program as well. So don't hesitate to RSVP for that event as well. Otherwise, if everybody's done, I'll kick you all to the curb and say thanks for joining us.
Stay connected to Mesa Chamber social media, email newsletters, Monday morning message, and mesachamber.org to always know what's happening at your Mesa Chamber.